From architecture to painting and sculpture, literature to live music and theater, Radio 111 presents Bonnie G and Brian Mendoza with The Desert Scene, your connection to culture and entertainment in the desert cities. Here's Bonnie and Brian.
And welcome to the Desert Scene. There's a lot going on in town right now. Busy. Pride Week. So I got my booster yesterday, my Moderna COVID booster. Sore arm, little headache, but not bad. So, yeah, I'm feeling good about that.
I was going to get my booster this week, but I got sick last week, so now I'm like on the recovering end of it. Yeah. So if you hear me try to talk, it's not COVID. I got tested twice.
He got tested. He's all right.
I'm all right. But the funny thing is, no one got sick, and I've been sick since last Saturday. So I was like, wait a minute. It's one of those things where like the only sickness that's spreading is throughout my body, not outside of it, which was...
Well, you never know, because sometimes you might have gone to a store and touched something and somebody else, and just a cold, and you just never know.
My theory is that because the day before I had ice cream at the movie theater at around 8 p.m. for an 8 p.m. screening, and I have noticed that like it is not the wisest thing for me to eat cold things at night, especially considering that the climate's changing, and also because after the movie someone had invited me out to a drink, and so I had a drink which was another cold beverage, and I had one, and then when I went home I drank some cold water to go to sleep.
You probably shouldn't drink. If you're I would drink room temperature, or warm something before you go to sleep, probably.
Well, you're right. And I was thinking, when I woke up that morning, I'm like, oh, my throat's kind of feeling kind of weak. I'm gonna get up and do my radio show. So I got up, and then when I got home, I was like, I'm a little tired. I wonder why. So I went to sleep, and I woke up with chills and I was like coughing, and I was like,
yeah, that's these days you get really nervous. Yeah. And
I was sitting there like, oh my God. And then I grabbed my mask and I put it on, and I just went to the other room, and I told my mom, we got to disinfect the door. I disinfected everything, and I went to go get a COVID test the next day because they were closing, which I do have a rant about that. I think that we should have enough COVID tests that people should just walk in, because I mean, I would have felt better that day.
These days, yeah, you'd think that they've done a pretty good job, and of course, all the vaccines have been free and all everything. But yeah, you'd think that there'd be places you could just walk in, get a test, and know in an hour or 2 hours or whatever,
Because my mom got the booster 2 days after Saturday, which was the day I was sick. That was the worst one. The chills was what scared me, because the chills were the one thing I heard, and I checked my temperature, and at first I said, before I went to sleep, it's all 99. That's a little high, but not too bad. And I tried it again, 101, and I was like,
oh no.
So I called John, and I think I try to tell everybody, but I don't know, when you're sick, sometimes you kind of don't think straight.
And you get a little foggy brain. Absolutely.
So I felt bad for not telling everybody, but then I was like, you know what, I'm going to get tested, because I'm going to do this thing where I checked in with a few people that I was around the other day, like, because symptoms after 2 days or 3 days, you almost feel like you're an expert at this point. But I called someone and said, are you sick? They said, no, I feel fine.
Yeah.
And I called Sunday, are you sick?
Yeah.
I kept calling people, are you sick? Are you sick? Are you sick?
And nobody was.
My parents didn't get sick. And I was worried about my parents, if anything. And so I got tested negative. I got tested at the clinic negative. And so, by the way, if you're ever sick, please go to a clinic, because I went to a clinic where they gave me a vaccine or an injection for medicine, and I felt so much better afterwards. Like, I felt alive. I felt like wanting to dance and all that. And so I don't know. It was one of those things where it was a COVID scare for me, certainly, and I feel like people. I'm not trying to frame myself as, oh my God, I survived my COVID scare, but it's still scary.
Of course. I don't blame you. I'm thinking, based on what you just said, that, when you were at the movie theater, you're at movie theaters, you might have touched a seat or even the place you went to get a drink, and it's just a regular cold, not, but, you go out in this time of year, you touch anything and there are germs sometimes. So
that's true. And also I feel like, because I noticed that when I got sick, I started to like used hand sanitizer more so, and I do have portable hand sanitizer, but when I go to the movies I don't do that sort of thing.
Yeah.
So maybe now, because I go to the movies so often, I gotta
Good idea. Just do it on a regular basis. Yeah. Well, the good news is we're both good. You're feeling much better. I'm not having a bad reaction to my booster, so it's a good thing. So much going on. The other night I went and reviewed Hedwig and the Angry Inch at Desert Rose Playhouse. They did a great job. You know, it's not my favorite show in the world. I have to preface that. I saw it in San Diego, but they did a great job. They really did a great job. The leads are fabulous, so I would recommend that. Chuck Yates directed, fabulous. Tomorrow, I am singing and the Pride festivities on the park stage at 3:00.
Woohoo,
I'm
yay.
doing 20 minutes, 25 minutes. There's a bunch of different performers, so I'm doing that. I'm really excited about it.
What
So-
songs are you
I'm not going to tell you.
Oh, no.
No, you got to come see. I don't want to tell you all the songs. They're like, well, we don't need to go now.
We heard Bonnie do that
Yeah.
one.
So-
But I was going to say, like, for your song process, when you choose songs for it, were you choosing songs specifically for Pride, or you just were like...
No, well, you're first of all, you have to sing with tracks. So that's one, what tracks do I have? What tracks can I get? And I wanted to do stuff mostly upbeat because it's Pride, there's 6 songs and there's only one that's sort of slower. All the rest are all, kind of up Latin or fun kind of thing. So.
the funny thing is that Hedwig came out literally the week of Pride, so I was thinking that the other day, like, that is...
I think they did that deliberately, yeah.
And I think that's such a great show to watch. Now I know you said it's not one of your favorite shows, but what makes, for you, like, even though it's not one of your favorite shows, like, do you still feel like you admire... I don't know how to put it, but, like, I guess, because I think you did answer, like, the production-wise of it, but, like, what was the difference between this version of it versus like the first production you saw of it in terms of quality?
Well, I saw it in San Diego a few years back. Some friends had some tickets and took us, and I can't remember the name of the theater, and I apologize, but it was a big theater in San Diego, live theater. Obviously they have more money to spend. It's a really big theater in San Diego, but this was pretty darn good. Desert Rose. I mean, the band was great. They have a band. Christopher Doe does keyboards, and I forget the other people, but the band was on stage, rock and roll band on stage. They were terrific, and the 2 leads, it's just basically 2 people. It's Hedwig and I forget the other character's name. That's his sort of sidekick husband who used to do drag, and actually it's a real life husband and wife who play the parts, and they're fabulous. They're really, really good. Both of the leads. It's Stock or something.
Stock, yeah.
Yeah. Very good. Excellent. Both of them were excellent. And the costumes were good. So, I mean, it was a very, really good production. Again, it's not my favorite show. I like the show, Rocky Horror, more than the show, Hedwig. But they did a great job.
It's one of those shows where, like, I've noticed that, like, Hedwig is a little bit less universally loved. Yeah. I don't know how to put it this way, but it's
a little more out there, fringe kind of thing. But
it's kind of one of those things where, like, Rocky Horror is such a mainstream show at this point,
right?
That Hedwig is like, when you watch it, it's like, okay, now this is underground. Yeah, now this is actual underground. I have to watch it. Is it going to still be on next week?
Oh yeah, they just opened Thursday and they go through the 21st.
I'll have to go because.
Yeah, I'd be curious to get your take on it.
Because I want to see it, and and also because I want to get over this cold, so nobody hears me in the audience like every other second. Do
you have water or something over there?
Yes, I do.
Okay, good.
There we go. Keeping myself hydrated.
Okay. So let's see, what else is going on?
Now, I was going to say that, did you hear about what happened in Sweden with the ABBA tribute concert?
I did not. Wow.
So in Sweden, there was how there's a lot of ABBA tribute bands and all that, and especially in Sweden. So what happens was that it was one of those shows where it's a concert hall with about 7 floors, and an 80-year-old man fell from the concert hall and fell on top of a couple, killing himself by accident.
And one of the people.
Oh
my God.
And the wife, it was a husband and wife, and the wife survived with non-life-threatening
Oh my gosh.
injuries.
Why did he fall? Do they know what happened? Why?
I was under the impression that it was like a horrible accident. Like, you know.
Were people dancing around and moving around? Or he
I'm
just
trying to think that.
lost his balance for no reason, or we don't know.
I think because he was an older man, it might
Yeah.
have been like a lost his balance sort of
Yeah.
thing, because he fell, and so he passed away along with the man that he fell on, and the tragedy of it, it's just it's such a sad
Yeah.
tragedy in general. But ABBA has said that they're trying to respectfully not over promote their own concert
Mm-hmm.
out of respect, because
yeah.
they feel like that promoting their concert in the middle of all that was not great. And so I think the
Good
concert
for them.
I think the concert got canceled too, because you know, you can't have a concert like that.
Yeah.
But that's what happened in Sweden.
It's sad. Yeah. Very sad.
And I was genuinely shocked, because I think it could be a case, like you said, that maybe people were having a really good time and dancing and all
And
that.
he just got bumped or jostled and just fell. Yeah.
And then ABBA's album Voyage actually came out this week. And so Voyage has newer songs, but it also has one of the older songs. I think it was called Just a Feeling, Just a Notion. And so far it's gotten pretty positive reviews. I mean, it's one of those things where it's like, if you're an ABBA fan, you're going to like it. If you're not an ABBA fan, it's more or less the same thing.
And now, I'm sorry if I missed it. Now, is this all new songs, or they're mixed in some old and new?
It's the second one, but mostly new. So like 75% of the album is like new stuff that they recorded now versus older stuff. And so it came out this week, and the reviews have been positive with mixed results. Like some people saying it's good, but it's like almost the same thing as like you heard in the 70s. So if you like that stuff from the 70s, you're not gonna.
Have you heard any of it?
I think so. I've heard some. I've heard most of the songs, and I gotta say, I don't know how to put it. I think they're good songs. I just think that if anything, they almost sound that it almost seems like the Chess Broadway experience bled into it, because it does sound like Broadway music.
Okay, interesting.
It sounds like a ballad, like the song I'm trying to I Still Have Faith in You. It sounds like a song that
from a Broadway show.
It sounds like a song from Mamma Mia specifically.
Okay.
I can imagine the mom singing that to the daughter. Yeah. I can see where these songs could fit on a Mamma Mia 3, but I'm okay with the songs. Like, they're good. I just don't think they have like the punch and kick of like Dancing Queen or Knowing Me, Knowing You.
Yeah.
And so it's a good album. I just wouldn't. It's more of a nice reunion album, but it almost feels like I was fine with just the last album, the one before it being the last one, because it felt like a good finale. This one feels more like I need more.
Yeah, you know what? It's funny, because that reminds me of one of my favorite phrases in the world, but entertainment, always leave them wanting more. And sometimes you got to just stop. Let's do that. And that was great. And sometimes people drag stuff out and dilute it and water it down, and then it's not as impressive. So,
and
just a thought.
I do want more ABBA, but I don't know, because I was kind of like, it does sound more like they're catering towards a Broadway audience, and I feel like ABBA shouldn't do that. I don't know how to put it.
Or maybe say ABBA does Broadway, whatever. All right, we'll be back with more news and some great guests later on in the Desert Scene in just a bit.
The Desert Scene on Radio 111. Cultural events and the people who make it happen in the desert cities with Bonnie G and Brian Mendoza.
So a casting decision has been made in the Wicked film adaptation. So for those of you who don't know what Wicked is, it's the original Broadway show, semi-based on The Wizard of Oz, but it's based on a book about...
It was Kristen Chenoweth and Idina Menzel.
Who originated the parts of Elphaba and Glinda. Elphaba being this green witch who has a really hard time fitting in, and her best friend, Glinda the Good Witch. and it's a story with social commentary and sometimes, maybe hinges of like romance between the two girls, but it's always been about friendship. It's always been about friendship with
BFF kind of stuff.
BFFs.
Yeah.
And so they finally cast Elphaba, who's going to be played by Cynthia Rivio, who was the original main character Celie from The Color Purple.
The musical Color Purple on Broadway, yeah.
Yes, and
Okay.
she also played Harriet on Harriet Tubman in the Harriet Tubman movie.
Good for her.
And also Ariana Grande will be playing Glinda the Good Witch. She has mostly been a singer and she's done some movies, but for the most part she's always mostly been just a singer, and she did some acting with Nickelodeon on shows like Victorious. But Ariana Grande evidently is the bigger of the two stars.
Well, her name is more recognizable.
Oh yeah,
you know.
certainly. And Ariana Grande is she's the only thing she has done so far in terms of like Broadway musicals that you may be able to have access to is she did a production of Hairspray for NBC, Hairspray Live. She played Penny Pinkerton on that one.
Okay.
So I gotta say that I was actually really happy with this casting decision. But my thing about it is the chemistry. It's not so much for me the two individual women. It's about whether or not they can work together, about whether or not I think if they can sing the song Popular together, or like, because Defying Gravity and Popular are songs where even though one person is singing them, it's about singing to another person or with someone watching you singing it. Like, Defying Gravity is not a song that she sings by herself. It's a song where she's singing it to Glinda, and Popular is a song about being popular, being sung to Elphaba.
Right,
so it's about the two girls working together. That's what I think. My concern is whether or not they have chemistry.
Yeah. Well, that'll be interesting to see. Yeah.
Because I think it's a show where your chemistry matters more than your individual performers. Like, your individual performers can be great or amazing, but if they have no chemistry, it doesn't work for Wicked, in my opinion.
I think you're right. In fact, I and of course I never saw the actual Broadway show, but went on the Tonys. Remember the Tonys? And they did all these duets, and Kristen Chenoweth and Idina Menzel did Because I Knew You, and it was fabulous. And they had major chemistry. I mean, you could tell when they were singing to each other that they're very close friends and got to be very close during this show, and that they really love each other, and that came across, and that was big. Yeah. And
I was surprised that that Dove Cameron wasn't chosen for the part of Glinda. I think Dove Cameron.
Who is that? I don't know who that is.
She played. Have you seen the Hairspray musical? The Hairspray Live musical?
No. Mm-mm.
Well, she basically played Kristen Chenoweth's daughter in that version.
Okay.
So I was surprised that
She's
they
kind
didn't
of the snobby daughter that thinks she should win everything. And, yeah. Okay.
So I can kind of I would have picked her at first, but then Ariana Grande makes sense for Glinda because she is sort of like this glamorous, like, movie star in a way that Glinda would be able to be personified. And Elphaba being played by Cynthia Rivio makes a lot of sense. And a lot of people are saying that it makes sense for a black actress to play Elphaba because the idea is that she gets discriminated for the color of her skin.
I think that's where. And but you have to be realistic about Ariana Grande. You know, part of the reason they cast her is her name.
Oh, yeah.
Because they know she's going to bring people to the movie theater. I mean, that's how Hollywood works, you know?
Especially considering that their director, John Cho, directed a musical called In the Heights. And with known big names, it tanked at the box office, even though everyone agreed that it was a good movie. It's just that I think the way I've been saying this, movie musicals are struggling right now because unless they have a big name attached to it, they struggle at the box office. And I think it's because people get the impression that they're going to be embarrassing to watch, like because Cats came out and I think Cats really killed movie musicals from right now.
Yeah, I think for a while, it was people were so disappointed with that.
And I think what I love about Ariana Grande is that she can sing, because I don't know if you're like me, but I am kind of tired of seeing musicals cast the name with
who can't really sing.
Who can't sing. Like,
no, you're right.
Like,
I agree.
Emma Watson in Beauty and the Beast, when they did the reboot for it, can't sing. I also Pierce Brosnan in Mamma Mia, awful singer. I'm trying to think of who else is like a bad singer in the movies, but like I've seen too many musicals where they just cast people, and I'm like, look, I know that name's gonna get butts in the seats, but we need singers.
But and here's the thing: I think there are plenty of well-known names in the business, actors who also can sing. You just got to find the right person. There's plenty of them out there.
Or like in the case of Julianne Moore, where I didn't know she can sing, but she can sing in Dear Evan Hansen.
Yeah, so that's what you got to go out there and find the ones that can sing, and there's enough of them out there if you really do some, research. Do your job. All right, we're going to be back. We take a break. We're going to come back with Fritz Coleman. I'm so excited to have him on. Of course, he's been a broadcaster in LA for years, and he's doing a wonderful show called Aging Gracefully During a Pandemic, a benefit for Jewish Family Services of the Desert. We're going to talk to him in a bit when we come back on The Desert Scene.
Bonnie and Brian continue with The Desert Scene on Radio 111. Here they are.
And we are back on The Desert Scene, and we're so excited to welcome to our show Fritz Coleman. He has been part of the LA scene for 30 years on NBC, 4 Emmy Awards for his broadcasts. And I didn't know that he's also a big stand-up comedian. It was one of Johnny Carson's favorites, was on The Tonight Show many times. And he's got a show coming up here, a benefit for the Jewish Family Service of the Desert. Hi, Fritz. How are you?
How are you?
Good.
Happy to talk to you today.
Yes, thank you so much. And I'm learning new stuff about you. I did not know that you did a lot of stand-up comedy. So did that come first before the broadcasting, or was it kind of always 2 parallel tracks for you?
No, it's really how I got my job doing weather at Channel 4. I came out here in 1980 to be a comic, to work at the Comedy Store, and to write for other comedians. And in 1982, I was performing at the Comedy Store, and my friend who worked at NBC at the time brought his boss and his boss's wife to see me perform one Friday night at the Comedy Store. And I talked on stage about I was in the Navy for 4 years, and when I was in the Navy, I was a broadcaster, and I did the weather, but I had some anecdotes about having to do the weather but not knowing anything about it.
Yeah.
And I spun it into a tale. Mm-hmm. And at the conclusion of the show, I went backstage to meet these people, my friend's boss and his wife. Mm-hmm. And he said, "This is a really odd question, but do you have any desire to come to Channel 4 and do some fill-in work for me, like on weekends or vacations? I have a Maine weatherman that hasn't had a vacation in a year. Would that be anything you would be interested in doing?" And I said, "Oh, my God." I was making $45 a night at the Comedy Store. Uh-huh. I said, "Oh, my God, when do you want me to start?"
Yeah.
And he said, "Well, you have to audition." Mm-hmm. So I auditioned and got the job. Mm-hmm. And I did utility. That is, I filled in on weekends and vacations for 2 years. Then my predecessor left, and I was bumped up to the Maine weatherman job. And I was there for just a couple of weeks shy of 40 years.
Wow.
It's the greatest stroke of show business luck in the history of show business.
Wow. Now, did you have to do a crash course on the nuts and bolts of weather?
No. When I was invited to do it, I was invited to do it because they wanted somebody with personality to do it. Mm-hmm. I was the palate cleanser between the tragedy and the sports.
Okay.
It wasn't about meteorology.
Right.
It wasn't about climate change and all that. They just wanted somebody to keep people from tuning out, and I did my job. I couldn't get the job now because now weather's being taken very seriously.
Yeah, everybody's got their meteorology degree and all of that. Yeah.
Yes, exactly.
Yeah. So tell me about, now you've written and performed a couple of one-man theater things, The Reception and It's Me, Dad. So tell me about how those came about.
Well, I mean, I've been doing stand-up I did 8 Tonight Show performances, and so I was getting a little bit of a rep doing stand-up. And then my father passed away. And so I'm an only child. I had a very odd relationship with my father. And the revelation for me was when I went to his funeral. I know this sounds depressing, but it gets better later.
Okay.
When I went to his funeral, I was astonished listening to the testimony and the eulogies of friends and family. I was astonished at how little I knew about my father. And it was interesting, and then it was depressing. And at that point, I made a promise to myself that I would never allow that to happen to my children. They would never be blindsided with information about me that they didn't know when I passed away. So I said, here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to sit and write out every aspect of my life, good and bad. I'm going to get a camcorder, sit in my den, and record this for my children, just sort of being totally open with them about all my flaws and everything. And then I'm going to put it in a safe deposit box. And when they're 18 years old, they can watch this thing, but they'll never be able to say they didn't know enough about their dad. So I began to tell people that I was doing that, and people said, you should turn this into a theater piece. It's a great idea. You know, I talk about, you know, my dad was an alcoholic and how alcohol was a problem in our family. And there are various aspects of it that made it sort of a common experience. So I wrote it, and it became my first one-person show called It's Me, Dad. And then the general manager at public television in L.A., KCET at the time, came to see this and loved it and said, I'm going to buy your play, and I want you to come and perform it, and we'll use it as a pledge fundraiser at KCET. And so that's what I did, and they ran that show 7 years in a row on Father's Day at KCET. So that was a great honor for me to have the ability to do that and raise some money. And then, so I didn't start it to be a one-person show. Just at the suggestion of others, I had the ability to share this experience with other people, and it was very, I must say, it was very touching, the response I got. And here's a little additional point. After that show aired on KCET, again, public television in L.A., the first time, I got home from the show. We had done a fundraiser for public television that night, and I got home, and the producer of the show at KCET called me and said, I'm going to give you a phone number. I want you to call it right now. Even though it's 12:15 at night, I want you to call. This person desperately wants to talk to you, and he's very important to KCET, so please don't slop this phone call off. So I called this person at 12:15 at night, and it was Marlon Brando.
Wow.
And Marlon Brando was very moved by this piece and began to, you know, and this is a time in his life when people didn't know him, and he sort of became, you know, a punchline.
Yes,
and it was,
yes.
You know, the Marlon Brando jokes.
Mm-hmm.
But I must tell you, I had about a half-hour conversation with this man. He could not have been lovelier. He was asking me questions about how I workshopped the play, how I wrote it, what was my writing discipline. Mm-hmm. He talked about having taken A Streetcar Named Desire on the road and how Tennessee Williams would come every day with new pages, and it was so hard because they had to memorize like all this additional dialogue before they would perform that night.
Yeah.
I had the best conversation with Marlon Brando for about a half hour.
Wow.
And I think I breathed in that half-hour period about twice.
Yeah, yeah.
And it was one of the great moments of my life. And there was nothing humorous or odd about it. He could not have been lovelier. And anyway, that was my first one-person show. And then I wrote another one to follow called The Reception, which was a fictional story about divorce. And I did it with 100 high-definition photographs that were projected behind me, and I cast people to be in the show. They were just still photographs, but I created this this fictional wedding reception that takes some twists and turns, but ultimately is about divorce. So that's how the one-person show happens, over and above my regular stand-up gigs.
Oh,
that
okay.
was a very long answer to your question, and I apologize.
Yeah, no, that's okay. I just want to make sure we get in the... So, Aging Gracefully During a Pandemic is the show that you're doing for the Jewish Family Services at Temple Sinai, Palm Desert, Sunday, November 14th. Doors open for guests 3 p.m., including a pre-reception auction and raffle. Tickets are $50, VIP $125. Tell us about how this show came about.
Well, the folks down there had gotten wind that I did this type of performance and invited me to come down there. And I was more than happy to do it. I've done some fundraising for Jewish Family Services in Los Angeles. They do an astonishing job, and the need for their services has never been greater than it has been during the pandemic. And I thought this is a great opportunity to go down and talk to the beautiful desert folks and meet those people, and we're going to do a show for them, and I promise you'll have a good time. There are no politics involved. There's nothing that will assault your consciousness. You're just going to spend an hour being taken out of your cares, and you'll have a great time.
And that, I think that's what we all need right now. Yeah, that's the kind of show we all need. So are you writing a book? You should. If you don't have a book already, I think you should be writing a book about your career and your life, because it's so interesting.
I thought about it. I've had some astonishing experiences. I really love to tell my stories on stage. Mm-hmm. And so until I'm too old to do that, maybe I'll hold off on writing a book. And then when I can't stand up with a microphone for an hour, then I'll commit it for a book. But, I love the writing process. Honestly, 50% of the comedy business for me is the writing and creating of it. It's the satisfaction of sitting in your house and being convinced that you're so funny. Yeah. And then, of course, you're often proven otherwise on stage, but it's fun.
I always love to ask this question. Are you one of those people that says, okay, today from 10 to noon, I'm going to sit down and write, or today from 3 to 5, or do you just write when inspiration comes to you?
No, that's a great question. And no, I'm very disciplined about my writing. Mm-hmm. I write at least an hour a day, and if I can do 2 or 3, that's good. And over this pandemic, I've written, and I've also rehearsed, because we haven't been able to do live club dates. Mm-hmm. And so comedy is a muscle that needs to be continually exercised. Yeah. And so without the ability to go out and be in front of a live audience, I rehearse at home. So I'll write for an hour or 2 hours and then sort of walk around my house talking to myself, scaring my cat, and making the neighbors question my sanity. But,
okay. And you still live in LA? Is that where you're based out of?
Yes, I do. I live in Toluca Lake, which is in the San Fernando Valley. And I've lived here for 40 years and love it. Raised my children here.
Excellent. So again, this show is called Aging Gracefully During a Pandemic. It's a benefit performance for Jewish Family Services of the Desert. Of course, the fabulous Fritz Coleman wrote it and starring in it. It's Sunday, November 14th at Temple Sinai. Doors open at 3 p.m. Pre-reception raffle auction. And for tickets, you can go to www.jfs for Jewish Family Services, jfsdesert.org. Well, this sounds like just such a lovely show. So do you have 3 or 4 other shows percolating in the back of your mind for the future?
Yes, bookings are starting to pick up, and I named it that in an effort to come up with a title, because it's going to be, there are two threads of common experience that I'm going to talk about on stage. One is the pandemic, and the other is getting old, and both I've experienced in spades over the last year and a half. So we'll just have fun. There'll be something for everybody to relate to.
It sounds like such a great show. I really encourage everybody to go check that out. Aging Gracefully in a Pandemic. Fritz Coleman, thank you so very much for being here. What a fascinating guy. And I can't wait for when the book comes out. I know it's going to be down the road.
That's nice, Bonnie. Listen, I appreciate you giving me an opportunity to talk about it. I think people have a great time.
Absolutely. Thank you so much, Fritz Coleman. Have a great show. Stay safe. All right.
You too.
We'll be back.
Thank you so much.
You're welcome. We'll be back with more in the Desert Scene in a moment.
From musical theater to literature and all the other stuff we enjoy in between, making desert life so vibrant. You're listening to Bonnie G and Brian Mendoza and the Desert Scene on Radio 111. Here's Bonnie and Brian.
And we're back on the Desert Scene, and we've got some more entertainment news. This is really disturbing.
Oh, yeah. No.
So tell us a story.
We'll definitely try to end the segment on a positive note with some updates to the Wicked news.
Okay.
But according to Lana Wood, who is Natalie Wood's sister, Natalie Wood is the star of various movies: The Searchers, Miracle on 34th Street, West Side Story,
Rebel Without a Cause,
Splendor in the Grass.
Yeah.
Yes. So many great movies. Now, Natalie Wood's life has always been sort of troubled over the years.
And tragic death. Drowning, yeah.
And there's even conversations about Robert Wagner's
being involved
and all that. But recently there is a new book coming out called Little Sister, which is supposed to be the detailed memoir of Lana Wood's relationship with Natalie and all that. And she had put some allegations in the book about Kirk Douglas that allegedly Kirk Douglas actually sexually assaulted Natalie Wood in 1955 during the filming of the movie The Searchers. Now, according to these extracts, there was a situation where Lana Wood said that she was in a car, and then Natalie went to go meet with Kirk Douglas, and she came back really angry, very disheveled, very obviously not in the best...
upset, and something happened,
Yeah. And she said that over the years, her mother and Natalie had agreed to not say anything because they were worried about her career being ended.
Yeah.
And there's also a conversation, too, about how Natalie had told Lana, do not talk about this ever in your life. You know, I don't want you to talk about it because this is not something I want to have my name dragged through the mud for.
And so she's decided to now, because Kirk Douglas died? So that she felt freer to talk about it, I guess?
Yeah, and so basically what had happened was that the rumors weren't far from... There was a lot of rumors about this. Actually, it turns out that there was rumors about Kirk Douglas being not the best guy.
With other women, too?
Other women.
Okay.
So there's been... So when Kirk Douglas died, his name actually trended the same day as Natalie Wood's trended. So those two names trended together the day he died last year.
Okay.
And so with Kirk Douglas... With that being said... Natalie Wood is one of the few... Lana Wood finally decided to, speak out against it.
And I have mixed feelings about it. I mean, I really have mixed... I mean, first of all, I am, absolutely consider myself a feminist, and I think women should be believed, and I think that, it's gone on for many, 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 many years, way too long, where they weren't, and it was all swept under the rug and all of that stuff, and men should be held accountable. Anyway, but then you have to wonder, first of all, if it was true, if Natalie Wood said to her, don't ever in your life talk about this, then you're wondering, well, why did she not follow her late sister's wishes? And the other thing is, they're both dead at this point, and I'm not quite sure what the purpose of it is. I have mixed feelings about it.
I guess that's a good question, the purpose, because the fact is that, you can't hold Kirk Douglas accountable.
He can't go to trial,
accountable anymore.
Yeah.
And Natalie Wood can't really say anything about it anymore. And Lana Wood has been very protective of Natalie Wood's legacy for a while, that she's actually one of the very few open celebrities to hold Robert Wagner responsible. Now, a lot of people have their own opinions about Robert Wagner, and
I think he was involved in some way.
Yeah,
that's all I'll say.
And that's the keyword thing, because I think so too.
I wasn't there. None of us were there, but there's just too much weirdness.
Even if it was an accident, there's something he had to do.
He didn't want to call the authorities. He delayed the search. There's a lot of stuff going on with it.
And I think personally, the reason why people might be more willing to believe Lana's belief about Robert is because there's so much there about Robert Wagner, and plus, Robert Wagner is, you can hold him accountable at this point.
Yeah.
Kirk Douglas, I definitely am more of a I definitely believe women, and I do believe a lot of men have gotten away with stuff over the years.
For years, in Hollywood especially, yeah.
Like Tippi Hedren, like I believe her about Hitchcock.
Hitchcock was weird. He was a weird guy.
Yeah, so. And even Janet Leigh had her own things to say. Funny enough, Jamie Lee Curtis had said that Janet Leigh would actually been freaking out about the Me Too movement had she been alive for it, because she felt that Janet Leigh was very much like, I'm just going to keep to myself. And so she would have been shocked that so many women had spoken out.
She didn't want to bring it out in the public. Yeah, I understand. But yeah, the Kirk Douglas thing, I don't know. I mean, it's just, I'm really torn about it because, let's say that was true. Okay. So it's kind of a black mark next to Kirk Douglas's name. I don't know. I just don't know.
Michael Douglas did respond saying, may they both, this is what he literally said, may they both rest in peace.
Well, that's kind of my viewpoint too. I mean, maybe it happened. I don't know. It's unfortunate if it did. I wouldn't be surprised. But what's the point now?
The thing would be that I would encourage people to read the memoir, certainly, like if you want to read more about it. But I definitely would say that it is the part of the memoir that everyone's going to talk about is the Kirk Douglas thing. Yeah. And it's not that I have a particular attachment to Kirk Douglas. I don't think, personally, I don't think Kirk Douglas is one of those celebrities you get attached to. Like his son, Michael Douglas, yes, sure.
Yeah.
But Kirk Douglas, it's one of those things where, again, it's like you're unsure because both of them are gone. And you just don't know because the one point would be Natalie Wood's not alive to sort of validate it, and Kirk Douglas is not alive to be accountable.
Yeah. So, and I think Michael was right. May they both rest in peace. If it happened, it's unfortunate. May they both rest in peace, and let's move on. Basically, yeah.
Oh, yes.
All right, we'll be back with much more with Brad Mercer on the Desert Scene in just a bit.
From architecture to painting and sculpture, literature to live music and theater, Radio 111 presents Bonnie G and Brian Mendoza with The Desert Scene, your connection to culture and entertainment in the desert cities. Here's Bonnie and Brian.
And we're back on the Desert Scene, and I'm so happy to welcome a good friend of mine who's wonderful, multi-talented guy, radio, music, wrote short films, all kinds of stuff. Brad Mercer. Hey, Brad, how are you?
Bonnie, it's been so long. How are you?
I know. It feels like, 10 years or something since we talked. I know it's not, but it feels like that. So you have...
Well, it might be.
You have... I'm somebody... I wear a lot of hats, and I really like wearing a lot of creative hats because it just keeps life interesting. But you do as well. You have... First of all, you have Brad's Pad, live classic rock every Tuesday, 7 to 10 p.m. at the Lit Lounge at Fantasy Springs. And you great band, and you have guests come in. Also, I know you did radio for years and years and years.
Right.
Looking through my now you're the creator and host of Brad Mercer's Bands and Fans syndicated radio show. So there's so much to talk about. First, tell us about the Tuesday nights Brad's Pad. Tell people about that.
Well, Brad's Pad is a phenomenal place for us to be. And the way it came about was I'm out at the Rock Yard. I've been out there for 16 years, hosting that. And one night, Paul Ryan came up to me and says, "Listen, the Lit Lounge is dark on Monday or Tuesday. If I were to give you the Lit Lounge, would you be able to put anybody in there?" And I said, "Well, it depends on what you want me to do."
Yeah.
He says, "Do what you do best." I saw your band. I said, "Oh, you want me to put the band in?" "Oh, I thought you wanted me to do it, a dance review or something."
Yeah.
And no, he actually we all put it together with no budget, nothing at all, and went in. And long story short, first week we drew 20 people. Second week we drew 40, and it kept doubling.
Yeah.
And because we would change the show around, we would do a 3-hour nonstop classic rock show. Wouldn't take a break. Started it out with 3 musicians. It was me, a drummer, and a bass player. And within 6 months, I had a full 6-piece band. And we rehearsed every day. and put together a high energy show. Mm-hmm. And it wasn't a show where you would go to talk or dance. It's a show where you would go and sit and watch because you never knew what was going to happen. Mm-hmm. And we put comedy in. Mm-hmm. We would have special guests, mm-hmm. which we would rehearse the night before so that everybody was on the same page.
Yeah.
And it started to really go. And now we're into our 4th year over there.
Wow.
Doing Brad's Pad. And I've got Brett Walco coming in, stand-up comedian, who's going to do a short set. We've had Gary Mule Deer. We've had people who drop by who work the main showroom would mm-hmm. stop by just to come and see what's going on.
Uh-huh.
And a lot of fun. It really is. It's a high-energy show, and so much fun every Tuesday.
All right, so that's one thing. Now, also talk about you've done so many things. I know you started a music career at age 5. You recorded lots of albums, 6 albums, and I did not know you also were in the comedy circuit, opening for the likes of Jay Leno, George Carlin, and Jeff Foxworthy, and you
mm-hmm.
you do impressions in comedy as yourself also.
The impressions. Every comedian does impressions. They mm-hmm. start off doing it, and I don't know why it's a thing everybody did. Even Don Rickles did, mm-hmm. and I fell into it with the help of Jay Leno. I was in Jacksonville, Florida. I had a comedy club, and I was running the club. Mm-hmm. And Jay and I had worked before in Las Vegas, and so he calls me up. He says, "Here, you got a comedy club." And I said, "Yeah, Jay." I said, "Too bad I can't afford you." He says, "All right, you can afford me. Come on, we'll ride motorcycles. I'll come on over." And I think I paid him $750 mm-hmm. to play my club. Mm-hmm. And then a radio station heard us do it. They picked me up to do a radio show. And then as that progressed, and I got on the air there at this rock station, Jay calls me up and says, "Hey, you still got that comedy club?" And then he'd come in again. Yeah. And then he hired me to travel with him in theaters to open for him.
Oh, that's great.
So that's how I got into the stand-up comedy thing. Mm-hmm. Same thing with George Carlin and Jeff Foxworthy, Sam Kinison.
Uh-huh. Wow, some amazing people.
I got some good tutoring, let's put it that way.
Now, you also, I'm looking at your bio, you wrote, produced, and directed a comedy spoof on the popular TV series CSI Miami called CSI Alm Prings. Now, tell me about that.
Okay. One night, I was coming home from work because, well, to be honest with you, I was fired from one of the radio stations I was at.
It happens to all of us. Yeah.
And you're not a veteran unless you've
exactly.
Right? So anyway, and I'm driving home, and I see this sign on Gene Autry and Vista Chino mm-hmm. that says Alm Prings.
Okay.
Yeah. So some thieves had
taken the letters.
The P and the S. Right. So I'm laughing. I get home, and I had watched a rerun of CSI mm-hmm. Miami. Mm-hmm. Saw David Crusoe's delivery and how his character.
Yeah.
And that cracked me up. Mm-hmm. And I liked the way he talked.
Yeah.
And
yeah.
Almost like a poor man's Bill Shatner.
Yes. Yeah.
So anyway, I'm figuring, okay, a hit and run becomes a homicide in the city of Alm Prings,
okay,
but it's not a human.
Ooh, okay.
So that sounded funny to me.
Okay.
So we turned this skunk into a major character, and the skunk is the one that gets killed. Mm. So I wrote the script like you would write a CSI episode, mm-hmm. those kind of characters. And before you know it, I had people in there like Terry Reid wanted to do a part, Mickey Thomas wanted to do a part. Mm-hmm. And so I'm thinking, okay, well, we'll make this an exact hour episode. Mm-hmm. Took us a whole year, Bonnie, to shoot it. We did it on 2 flip cameras.
Yeah.
My wife, Connie, helped me direct it.
Uh-huh.
She very brilliant, and I did all the music, and I put other people who had original music
Yeah.
to write for the soundtrack. Took us over a year to do it. It has its own website, csialmprings.com.
Okay. Have to check
And you
that
can see
out.
the movie.
All right. And then you also have a film, Sushi Anyone, which won the award for Best Film Short at the La Jolla Film Festival, was screened at AMF and Film Festival. Tell us about that a little bit.
Okay, quick shot on that. That was written back in 1992. My first attempt for a screenplay because I was a big Tales from the Crypt fan.
Mm-hmm.
Wrote the script, sent it in. They loved it. They were going to produce it. And just out of the blue, the rocket scientists there decided to drop the show on HBO. So it never got shot. And 25 years later, my wife's going through the drawer here, sees the script. She says, "What's this?" I said, "That's something I did a long time ago." She says, "Well, I hate it, but I love it." And I said, "Well, what are you trying to tell me?" She says, "You've got to shoot this. There's people out there who would love this." Tales from the Crypt is dark humor.
Mm-hmm.
And horror. So we did it. We put it together. I got the Pedersen brothers. Remember them?
Mm-hmm.
Mike and Larry Pedersen.
Yeah.
They had a company, and I think they still do.
Yeah.
We raised enough money to shoot it, and we did it in 10 days. It's 33 minutes long. It has its own website, sushianyonethemovie.com.
Okay. And talk about, I want to get in here also, your syndicated radio show, Brad Mercer's Bands and Fans. That's on now, and where can people hear that?
Yeah, that's every Saturday. In fact, it's on today.
Okay.
From 4 to 6 p.m. on Kicks Hot Country. That's the hub.
Okay.
You can go to 96.3 FM in the high desert, 92.1 in the low desert. Of course, it streams worldwide, but it also airs in the UK on SpectrumRadio.com.
Wow.
And it's in Belgium and Australia.
Wow.
And but it's every week, Saturdays from 4 to 6.
Excellent. And so go ahead.
No, I just wanted to say, I showcase and spotlight the unsigned and newly signed new country indie artists and bands locally and from around the world that don't get airplay.
Okay. Excellent. Now, at this point, how do you find them? Do they send you? Do they find you, or you find them? Kind of a mix?
No, they come to me. They go to Brad Mercer's BNF, which stands for Bands and Fans, .com, and they fill out a little thing. They send me their track, and if it fits the genre and it fits the show and it's produced well, I'll play it. We with Brad's Pad, getting back to that real quick. My guitar player and music director is Peter Sutter, and Peter and I, over a short period of time, have got to know each other like it's incredible. The songwriting that we do together, we've written songs. We have recorded an EP. You can get it on Amazon, Spotify, and anywhere that sells these things. But we wrote a 3-song EP together. We call ourselves Mercer and Sutter. And I heard Chip Miller on your show last week.
Yeah. And
I don't know if he mentioned it, but he's the one that produced and directed our official music video.
Excellent. Yeah, he does so much of that kind of stuff.
Yeah. But then on top of that, he liked the song so much that he signed us to an exclusive contract.
Wow.
With his company, and he's already put the song in 2 major films. We have one in production right now. The song's called "I'm Coming Home." If you go to YouTube and put in "I'm Coming Home," Mercer and Sutter, you'll see the video. Or you can go to mercerandsutter.com.
Well, Brad, I just have one question for you. Will you stop slacking? My goodness.
Yeah, I'm slowing down.
No, you
Slowing
got
down in my old age.
You got so much going on out there. Congratulations on all of it. So you guys got to go check out Brad's Pad live classic rock every Tuesday 7 to 10 p.m. at the Lit Lounge, Fantasy Springs, and of course your radio show, Brad Mercer's Bands and Fans. Congratulations on all of your. You got so much going on. You're really getting your creative juices, all your creativity out there and sharing it with us. Really appreciate you being here. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Bonnie. You got to come out and see the show too.
I will. One of these nights I will. Well, listen, stay safe out there. Get some rest in between all this stuff. And thanks for being here. Really appreciate it.
You bet. Bye-bye now.
All right. Brad Mercer will be back with more on the Desert Scene in just a bit.
He likes to read. She likes to sing and act. They both love the Coachella Valley. And they love talking about the desert scene with you on Radio 111. Here's Bonnie G and Brian Mendoza.
So we're going to talk about, since it is Pride Weekend here in Palm Springs, because it's hot. It's hot during July, so we don't get Pride Weekend here. Pride Weekend over in July, but we get it in October, or November, because trust us, we prefer it that way. But we're going to talk about very briefly two stories that involve the LGBT community. Kal Penn, who you remember from House, and you also remember from Harold and Kumar, the famous movies about two boys who basically smoke weed all day and wants to get a burger from White Castle. And that's the whole journey of the movie, but it's actually like a really funny movie.
I like this guy. I always liked him on House, yeah.
On House, he was really good. I think he showed real dramatic range on that show. So, like, I've always thought of him as underrated, but he recently came out of the closet in his memoir, and he has recently announced that he's finally getting engaged to his partner of 11 years.
Good for him.
It seems interesting that I always think it's like the most interesting thing that Elvira and Kal Penn, managed to hide their partner for
that many years.
For that many years, especially considering how heavy the press can be about things.
Yeah, press can be really intrusive. Yeah.
And so, and it's fun. And coming out of this, I got to say congrats to him, because I do think that I do want to address that. I do find it kind of a little sad that his coming out story doesn't get as much press, because even though last year they had a guy named Carlton Underwood who came out, and I thought he was the most boring person in the world, and his coming out became all over the place. It was all over the news and all that, and I thought, oh, what a boring person. And Kal Penn is not a boring person. He worked for the Obama administration, and I think he has a fascinating career, so this is just another
level. Yeah, one more thing about him, yeah.
And in the Middle East, however, there's this superhero movie called Eternals, which has a very big cast: Gemma Chan, Angelina Jolie, Richard Madden. And the film is directed by Chloe Zhao, who is the first Asian American woman to win Best Director at the Oscars, second woman to ever win that.
Yeah.
So she's a director that really wanted to do something different. And so she got the opportunity to helm the MCU, the Marvel Cinematic Universe's, that famous superhero franchise, their very first LGBT relationship and the first kiss between two men in that movie. So it might not seem like a big deal, but it actually was. It is a big deal because of the fact that it's finally on screen. You actually see them kiss for like on camera for like the good old 30 seconds, you know. But the problem is the fact is that kiss, you would almost get the impression, because it's in one isolated scene, that they would cut it out. But Chloe Zhao and Disney finally decided
wanted to keep it in.
They kept it in. And Chloe Zhao said in an interview, part of my thing with Disney was that they would not edit my movie when it goes to other countries, that the only thing they would edit is a dub. Yeah. Because Disney has had a history of making gay characters in their movies and then taking out their one scene for the distribution.
Thinking of the brand Disney, I'm not surprised that they have used to have done that.
And so when they go
Yeah.
to China, and for example, Star Wars: The Rise of Skywalker had a scene where two women hug and they kiss, but it's so in the background that if you don't
Yeah.
notice, you don't notice.
Yeah.
But even then, in China, they had to take out that whole scene.
Mm-hmm.
And so you see there would be this awkward cut where someone comes out of a ship and everybody walks to reunite with their loved ones, and you don't see them hug their loved ones.
Yeah.
So it's kind of an awkward thing.
Yeah.
But in this case, because it's so front and center, they couldn't cut it out. And so Disney Disney, Marvel, and Chloe Zhao said, no, we're keeping those scenes in. And so 3 Middle Eastern countries, Saudi Arabia, Qatar, and Kuwait, will ban the film because it features a kiss. And so Angelina Jolie said, has some thoughts about it. She basically said that she doesn't fully understand how anyone could be so ignorant. And then she said, I'm sad for those audiences in those countries because she doesn't understand how we live in a world today where there are people out there who would not see the family that the hero has and the beauty in the relationship that they have. And she said how anybody is ignorant about it, threatened by it, doesn't approve or appreciate it is ignorant. You know, like how is this still going on?
There's some people just have closed minds. That's,
And in the movie, it's you would almost argue that the family in the film, the gay family, is a very stereotypical family, just in general. Like, if it wasn't for the fact that it was 2 men, it would just be like a husband, wife.
right.
Or in
Very
this case,
standard, yeah.
very standard husband,
Yeah.
child. And so you would almost think of it as like a very, like if you wanted a steamy kiss, you wouldn't get one because it's not there. So it seems kind of a little silly to me in those countries that they banned it. And because they did tell Disney, we can show those movies. You just got to cut them out, and they decided not to do it, which surprised me for once that they decided to keep it in, because usually they cut it out in the past.
Well, maybe we can look at that as progress,
No, I definitely agree with that, and I think that it's curious that it comes out the same weekend as like Pride in Palm Springs. It's not planned, of course, but I am glad that at least company-wise Disney's like keeping strong to their audiences, and I do feel bad for the Saudi Arabian audiences who.
Well, Saudi Arabia, I mean, my God, they have just some bizarre laws and things.
Censorship laws and all that. Yeah.
I can't imagine living there. My goodness gracious. All right. Okay. Much more. We're going to be back with the fabulous Will Donato in just a minute on the Desert Scene.
Bonnie and Brian continue with the Desert Scene on Radio 111. Here they are.
And we are back on the Desert Scene, and I'm so very excited. We've had a great show today with great guests to welcome the fabulous Will Donato, who is an amazing musician, saxophone player, and just a really nice guy. Hey, Will, how are you?
Hi, beautiful. I was enjoying your bio. I didn't know that. I heard that you had a star on the Walk of Fame, but I did not know that.
Yeah, it's very exciting. Yeah, that was in 2017. It's right in front of 420 Bank.
Well, you know what? If you're a singer, writer, actress, or radio personality, they better give you a damn star.
Well, I'm very. It was one of the career highlights of my life. Absolutely. So you are just hot as can be right now. I mean, you've got, first of all, you have this #1 spot on the Billboard charts with your radio single Infinite Soul. Reached 3 million streams on Spotify. Tell us about that, first of all. I know we got a lot of things to cover.
It's funny because, in the business of music, you try to set your brand and then you put it out there and you just never know how it will be received. But, my acronym is always basically don't compete, but just excel in your own, in your own wheelhouse and do the best you can in getting things that are authentic to us.
Yeah.
And not try to, I don't really jump on trends just to get accolades. So I really just stick, and a lot of it's just based on how I like to perform. So I write songs that service my show. So I don't, I'm an upbeat guy, cancer survivor. So I try to put a really positive message in my songs. So sometimes I just write, for my set list, I need an opener, I need a closer, I need something, ballad or sexy. But in the course of doing that, one of my musical children went number 1 on Billboard.
That is so great. So exciting.
Bonnie, I couldn't believe. It's funny to watch it. It's like watching a stock,
Yeah, go up and down. Yeah.
And you know how it is. You as a performer, we genuinely love your Streisands, and you love your Clooney's, and you love your Crawls, and and for me, watching the Causes and the David Sanborns, and all of a sudden my humble musical child just keeps going on up the charts, and it's just very thrilling. And sometimes you need you want a tiny bit of recognition. You're not in it for that. It doesn't hurt.
It's
with
nice.
all the hard work.
Yes.
It's a nice thing. Like your star.
Absolutely. It's nice
you
when
put the time in, and yes.
And you've got so much going on. First of all, you have a current radio single, "The Goddess," written for your wife. What a nice tribute that is.
It's funny because I feel like with 10 CDs under my belt, I notice in a lot of arts, the poetry, the written word, an artist will eventually realize these little titles that we always write. Riding down 111.
Yeah.
Tramway. I'm like, what do they all mean? They're not really telling a story. And I thought, I want to celebrate my wife. It's just the things that make my life complete.
Yeah.
Kind of start and end with her. And I was putting together, Bonnie, you probably laugh at this with the way we craft albums, but I was looking at titles that you typically write, like "Getting Down," "Jumping Up."
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah.
What do these dumb titles mean? So I thought, I'm gonna make this album themed for my wife, and it's not all just puppies and flowers, because my wife loves to dance. She loves James Brown, so some of the songs are very funky, but they all have something to do with us and things we laugh at, and hopefully things that other people can relate to. So it's not just Bonnie's smile, Bonnie's eyes, Diana's smile, but I'm having really a lot of fun writing it, and I just thought I can't just when we put these albums together, they just, do these titles all add up to something?
Yeah.
And especially for you're a singer, you get to sing a lot of words. For when you're an instrumentalist, sometimes your titles are the only shot that you get to get your message across.
Yeah.
But I'm such a huge fan of yours.
You're very sweet.
I kind of moved out here just to put my head down and crank out music, and then pop up once in a while, look around, and so sometimes I don't hit all the gatherings, but I am such a huge fan of the artists out here. And
well, we're blessed. The desert really has a lot of talent. It's amazing. Now, I want to get a couple things in. We got a bunch of stuff to cover. We want to make sure we cover. First of all, you're going to be at the La Quinta Arts Festival. Tell us about that.
That's November 14th. We're going to be on the amphitheater stage from 1 to 4. Why I love this festival, because a lot of times I've been on tour lately, I don't get to perform the originals in my hometown. And we have such a good, like you said, a good crew of people that know how to do lifestyle out here in the desert, and we just absolutely love them. And sometimes with post-COVID shows, my shows have taken me out of town, or even in LA or Orange County, and especially with season just starting now, we miss these friends. We have not seen them, and it's just, I'm a people person, and I love to engage, and I'm just, look people in the eye, and I listen to their stories. I love that. Yeah. And so to see our friends, back again, and people enjoying themselves, it's really joyful. Yeah.
And you also have coming up in December, you're part of the Desert Jam for Well in the Desert. Tell us about that.
Well, I love charities, and any chance I can do benefits for charities, I jump at it. My mom passed away from Alzheimer's, and I'm a cancer survivor, so I really don't care about the math. If someone says, "Do you want to do the Alzheimer's walk?" Yes.
Yes. Yeah. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Do you want to know what it pays? No.
Yeah.
Are there granola bars? Yes.
Yeah. That's all you need. Yeah, I hear you.
That's all I need. But for me, the Well in the Desert is such a beautiful, potent, advocacy for the homeless and the poverty and the veterans. And I just love Arlene Rosenthal, the key person on that charity. And I'm just really honored to be part of that. And I know every little bit helps.
Yeah.
We all do the best we can as artists to raise money. But also, I love Chris Gore's band. He's got such a great house band. And I enjoy working with Chris. So he has a nice group of artists performing, and I'm just glad to be part of that family. But, I notice sometimes our fellow artists, some of these benefits, they almost treat them like they're concerts. And I've actually kidded a couple of friends. I go, you don't know what charity you're playing for? What the? Who are you?
Yeah, exactly. That's important. Yeah.
Know your charity.
Yeah.
I thought this is all about me. No.
No, it's not. Hey, I want to get one other thing out, which I think is so great. And it's hard to think of you as a grandfather, but you did a CD of lullabies for your grandson. Is that correct?
Yeah. Oh, you saw that.
Yeah. So sweet.
I am not a COVID lamenter because we all paid our dues, but, I thought I didn't get to see my grandson much during that pandemic just because of travel restrictions and so forth. But then I thought I was going to write an original lullaby for my grandson, an original one. And it came out great. So then I thought, I swear to God, I do this sometimes, Bonnie, and you might try this when you put an album together. I go on iTunes and I look up what's been done. I did a Renaissance holiday CD last year, Celtic, excuse me, and I found that the competition was not competition, but the selections available were just real dated or just not hitting the mark. So then I thought, okay, lullaby. I thought, okay, it's going to be glutted. And I realized that a lot of the lullaby CDs are sort of like, kind of theater voices just singing, Twinkle, Twinkle, Little Star.
Yeah.
I thought, these lullabies aren't lulling.
Yeah.
It's more about the performer. So I thought, wow, who would think that there's a niche in the lullaby market for a lullaby, Bonnie, that actually lulls? So
yeah, exactly.
I got my friend Steve Oliver, who just moved out to the desert, wonderful nylon guitar player and, Billboard #1 artist. And we just literally strum these things like Puff the Magic Dragon, and I play flute. So I played flute and nylon guitar. And we didn't do anything clever, Bonnie. We just made lullabies. But I was shocked. Sometimes when you program your next album, you think, wow, maybe let me see what people have done in homage to Rosemary Clooney or something. Sometimes you'll be shocked that what you think will be out there.
Yeah. Well, that's just...
I actually looked up Italian guys, myself, who play saxophone romantic Italian music, or even some fun ones like Louis Prima and Sinatra.
Yeah.
Nothing.
Wow.
Like an instrumental version of that fun stuff. Literally, maybe one guy in Italy, but it wasn't recorded like we would do it.
Yeah.
But I thought, why isn't there like a saxophone Sinatra album out there that's done right?
You'd think, yeah.
But it's so funny when you look up these, the next time you sit down to do a project, go, my friend Will has an idea, from movie themes to just things that interest you.
Yes.
I'm constantly shocked that the market's not serviced sometimes. It blows me away. But anyway, sorry about my passion here.
No, that's great. And it's interesting because I've never heard any other musician really say that or say that they do that kind of research. That's interesting. That you take the time to see
what's
that.
out there.
Yeah.
And it's funny because I'm literally shocked sometimes. Like, what? There isn't just like a Dave Koz doing My Way and, done right, not corny, but done sexy.
Yeah.
And I'm like, holy crap, with billions of music on iTunes or Amazon. There's not even, it amazes me, Bonnie, sometimes when I have these ideas about, just projects. Anyway.
So do you write a lot? Do you write a lot of your own stuff?
I write a lot. I used to literally wake up with a cup of coffee and write at least 8 bars of something. I don't want the listeners to think I write symphonies every morning, but sometimes I call it I'm writing from my boneyard of choruses or verses, and it was more just a fun thing to do.
Yeah.
And then sort of like Jim on Taxi. Attention, dated reference.
Yeah. Okay. Okay.
Wow, Alex, I've got 200 songs I've written. Jim at the piano on Taxi.
So,
but I really love it, and I can write under deadlines and pressure. Like if you said, "Hey, Will, I'm going to produce your next album. I need 10 songs by December 15th," I can deliver.
Excellent.
Are they all hits? Probably not. Maybe album cuts. but I can write under pressure.
Well, that's important. Now, I'm looking at the stuff I have here. In the studio, working on your next full-length album, Elevate, to be released in late 2020. Was that released, Elevate?
Elevate's out, and I'm actually writing a CD now that's going to be ready for first quarter 2022 called Legacy. And I didn't write it to be aggrandize myself. I'm starting the album with, what is your legacy?
Yeah.
Celebrate your own legacy.
Yes.
So that kind of, rather than, check me out, all about me, I wanted to make it more, all the verbiage and all the promotion definitely says, basically, we all have a legacy. Celebrate your own legacy, however that is.
What a great message, yeah.
Yeah, instead of, all about me kind of isms. So
yeah.
I'm kind of excited about that, too. I'm trying to think of how I'm going to do this next project. I might do all my friends that have complete studios, because I've done that in the last two albums where I call you up. Hey, Bonnie, can you sing a chorus from wherever you're at?
Well, we're running out of time, so I want to just get this in real quick. Again, La Quinta Arts Festival, November 14th, 1 to 4. Desert Jam for Well in the Desert, I think it's December 6th. And Infinite Soul, check it out on Billboard.
Billboard #1.
Congratulations on everything that you're doing. Such great. It couldn't happen to a nicer guy, and we really appreciate you being here. You're just the best. Thank you so much.
And you know what? I wanted to ask you too, maybe off the air, I want to come and see you sing. So have a great weekend. I love and appreciate you, Bonnie.
Oh, thank you so much. All right, Will Donato, love him, love him, love him. Great. Thank you so much. We'll be back with more on the Desert Scene.
The Desert Scene on Radio 111. Cultural events and the people who make it happen in the desert cities with Bonnie G and Brian Mendoza.
Hey, why don't we talk about some pop culture history?
Let's do it.
So, November 4th, which was a couple of days ago, so now it's November 6th, but if you're listening to this podcast, this would be from November 4th, 2021. But in 1879, November 4th, the first cash register was created.
All right.
So this man, James Jacob Ritty, opened up his first saloon in Dayton, Ohio in 1871. But what had happened was that his employees would steal money from him. They would pocket the money, and he would have no way of figuring out, like, how much money he made, how much money he lost. So basically, what happened was that he went to this, like, steamship trip and became fascinated with how the machine went full circle, the ship propellers and all that. So he basically went home and started working on this cash register machine. And so he managed to create this machine that would manufacture cash registers, this factory that would make cash registers, and he would have a saloon open. The machine for the cash registers didn't succeed as well, but he sold it. And so it made a lot of money. And of course that...
Good for him.
So it's interesting. Like, it does make sense because his cash register does keep track of everything. But I was like, who knew that it was specifically to deal with, like, loss prevention and all that?
Yeah, makes sense. Yeah.
And then the next day, November 5th, in 1937, Silly Symphonies, the movie The Old Mill, which is one of the darker, more serious Disney shorts, won an Oscar for Best Animated Short. And it's basically a short about an old mill and all the creatures that live inside of it. It is probably one of the first ones without Mickey Mouse in it, and it won an Oscar. And also on November 5th, in 2007, the writer's strike happened. So
yeah, that was big.
So what happened was that the writer's strike had happened because of negotiations between the Alliance of Film Producers breaking down, and so it lasted for about until February 26th, so a couple months, and it pretty much just delayed productions on 60 TV shows, and it cost about $3 billion to the local Los Angeles economy, and one of the biggest jokes is that audiences learn to read again after that.
Yeah. Okay.
And so The Incredibles also came out the same day. So that superhero movie about the superhero family came out the same day, November 5th, 2005. And November 5th, 2007, Snail... actually, this wasn't 2007, but it arrived in 2007. So in 1917... November 5th, 1917, a young man named Walter Butler sent a postcard from the battlefield to his fiancée to her house, and it didn't arrive until 2007.
Well, what year was it sent?
1917.
Wow.
And it had not arrived until 2007, and the woman the residence of the house was I think the woman doesn't live there anymore, but eventually got to the house of I think their granddaughter. So she finally got that letter. The
Wonder
older
where
woman,
it was all that time.
They don't know. They're trying to figure out the mystery.
Wouldn't it be fascinating to find out where it was all that time?
And so the daughter at 82 years old finally got the letter.
Yeah.
And who knows, because that took forever.
Wow.
I think that's probably one of the main origins of the word snail trail.
Yeah, snail mail.
Snail mail.
Yeah.
Oh, I can't imagine. Like that was 90 years. About 90 years.
It must have just been stuck in a corner somewhere for a long time or something, you know?
It's kind of like where you're like, I'm just going to put this in the side.
Yeah.
And you forget about it.
There forever. Wow. Wow.
And then in 1990, November 6th, a part of the Universal Studios backlot was destroyed. So some of the most iconic sets include a King Kong exhibition and one of the sets for Back to the Future.
They destroyed them deliberately?
I think it was an accidental fire.
Oh, it was a fire. Okay.
And some film negatives got destroyed. So like some of the original film negatives for some movies got destroyed in that fire. But it is the second fire within 20 years that I think there was one in 1970 or something like that actually occurred. So Universal probably needs to be very careful about setting things on fire over there.
Yeah.
But
you think? Yeah, it might be a wise idea.
And then November 6, 2001, the TV show 24 debuted on Fox. Okay. If anybody remembers, that show is basically plays out in real time. It's like a terrorist attack.
I remember. Wasn't that Kiefer Sutherland?
Yes.
Yeah.
And so each season, it would be like 24 episodes, which would mean one day. And it was one of the shows that it was iconic for having that clock. That Dune.
Saw it, yeah.
You know what it is, if you know what it is. And I remember watching it, and I used to actually get really excited, but the joke about the clock got old real quick. If you were a parody writer in 2001 and you did not use the clock joke from 24, I praise you, because that joke was dead.
I praise you. Thank you.
And then finally, we'll go ahead and just say in 1972 for November 8th, the first paid TV channel appears for the first time, HBO.
What year was that?
1972, and November 8th.
Wow, that seems so long ago.
I imagine HBO was more of a 90s invention, but then I forget it was made in 1972.
Yeah. All right, some interesting stuff. Thank you so much to our guests today. Fritz Coleman, Brad Mercer, Will Donato, wonderful guests. It's Pride Weekend. Go out there and check stuff out. Again, I'm going to be singing tomorrow, 3 p.m. at the Park Stage. Hope to see you there. Woo! Stay safe. Get your vaccination. Get your boosters. All that stuff. Stay safe. And we'll see you next week.